حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله الله بالحق بشيرا ونذيرا بين يدي الساعة من أطاع الله ورسوله فقد رشد واهتدى ومن يعصهما فإنه لا يضر إلا نفسه ولا يضر الله شيئا وسيجزي الله الشاكرين. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لم تقولون ما لا تفعلون كبر مقتا عند الله أن تقولوا ما لا تفعلون صدق الله العظيم. My respected brothers and sisters, tomorrow, the 10th of December, is the day of universal human rights. Almost 63 years ago, on December 10th, 1948, the United Nations General Assembly passed the resolution, they adopted the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. And every year on 10th of December, this day is commemorated as the day of gauging the gains and losses when it comes to human rights. And as the Declaration of Human Rights was mostly propounded by the secular, like the Western powers, somehow it is believed that this declaration or even the concept of human rights is not compatible when it comes to religion or religious framework. And Islam is especially excluded because in the Western mind, the Qur'an, the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they in reality breed violence and somehow curb the human rights, the religious tolerance, as well as the freedom of expression. So when you look into the discussions or the debates which are taking place on the internet, you will see that somehow there is a kind of hidden presumption that yes, these Muslims or Muslim countries, they came on board and they signed the declaration, but in reality it is not part of their religious philosophy and they were somehow forced to do it. And also the records of Muslim nations is very often quoted to prove that even after the declaration was signed, many of the Muslim countries, they do not have the respect for human life because the violence is rampant. They do not have the tolerance for minorities as the Hindus or the Sikh or the Christians or the Jews somehow are portrayed as the victims of Muslims' violence, and somehow the Muslim nations, they are at the bottom of the countries who somehow allow the human rights or human freedoms. I have no hesitation in accepting the fact that yes, Muslims are really the culprits. And many of the Muslim countries, and I would say their governments, because of their dictatorial regimes and because of their royal monarchical kind of mentality, somehow they do not consider the other human beings, whether Muslims or non-Muslims, equal to the elite class. And yes, in many of the Muslim countries, the human rights violations are very much pervasive, and somehow I do not know how we Muslims, and especially our leaders, are going to face Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and call themselves Muslims, because Islam has come to bring freedom and to take the people out of the bondage of human beings to the bondage of only one Lord, who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The famous statement of the Sahabi of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he was asked about the essence of Islam, define to us what is Islam and what is the goal of Islam. He said, أن يخرج العباد من عبادة العباد إلى عبادة رب العباد. That the bottom line, or the summary, the goal of Islamic religion is to take people out of the bondage of human beings to the slavery or submission to the one Lord, who is the Lord of everybody in this world. But somehow in the Muslim countries, we do not have only elite class, but we have got the fakhamat al-rais, and Ma'ali and Sumuv, mashallah, his excellency, and his, everything is astaghfirullah, as if there are some superhuman beings and everybody else is not equal to them. But that said, I want to differentiate between Muslims and between Islam. Unfortunately, sometimes the actions of Muslims are somehow lumped with the religion of Islam. While Islam and Muslims, they are two different animals. Muslims' actions are the individual actions, and Islamic teachings are what are in the Qur'an and what are in the saying of the Prophet ﷺ. And that's where the Muslim scholarships or Muslim intellectuals, they somehow feel that the Western powers, they arrived at the Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. But somehow Islam brought us these rights in the 7th century. Because the Qur'an is the Magna Carta of human rights, and all of the basics of human rights which are determined or which are enumerated in the Declaration of Human Rights are already given by the Qur'an to every human being on the face of this earth. When we talk about the human life, or human dignity, or human justice, or you can call it even the issue of slandering, backbiting, we do not need the United Nations, we do not need anybody else's input, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already told us in the Qur'an how to respect a human being and how to give the proper freedoms. All of us, we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us that this life is so sacred, that this is the divine gift given to every human being. And that divine gift is given without any preference for a race, or for a group, or for a person, or a creed, or religiosity, or ethnicity. All the human beings have got that grace from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَإِذَا سَوَّيْتُهُ وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي فَقَعُوا لَهُ سَاجِدِينَ. The humanity starts with the soul, with the ruh from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because of that gift, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made all the human beings ahsan, the best of the creatures. وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ فَلَهُمْ أَجْرٌ غَيْرُ مَمْنُونٍ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in reality created all the human beings in the best of the fashion, in the best of the creation. Now yes, there are groups among the human beings, those who do the righteous deed and prefer goodness and morality over evil and immoral acts. These are the people who are remaining in that status. But those people who choose the different route, they reach to the lowest of all the lowest points. So this is their choice. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the human beings as the most dignified creature upon earth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has also told us in Surah Al-Isra, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ وَحَمَلْنَاهُمْ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ وَرَزَقْنَاهُمْ مِنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ وَفَضَّلْنَاهُمْ عَلَى كَثِيرٍ مِمَّنْ خَلَقْنَا تَفْضِيلًا. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has dignified all the human beings, whether they are black or white, Muslim or non-Muslims, as long as a person possesses the soul. Because of that soul, that person is the most honored creature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَفَضَّلْنَاهُمْ عَلَى كَثِيرٍ مِمَّنْ خَلَقْنَا تَفْضِيلًا. And that person, because of that divine gift, is the most honored among most of the creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore, to kill that person or to take that life without proper due is equal to killing the entire humanity. And Qur'an has made it so clear that even a cursor reader who would read that ayah will not be able to confuse the issue of life and its sanctity when it comes to the Qur'an and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. من قتل نفسا بغير نفس أو فساد في الأرض فكأنما قتل الناس جميعا ومن أحياها فكأنما أحيا الناس جميعا. Quran has left no stone unturned to let the humanity know that killing one innocent soul is tantamount to killing the entire humanity. And saving or preserving one human soul is equal to preserving the entire humanity. Rasulullah sallam, he sees a funeral passing by and he stands up. When he's told, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, don't stand up, because basically this is the janaza or the funeral of a Jew. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam did not hesitate to admonish and to correct his Sahabi, saying, don't you think that a Jew has got a soul? So what he is saying, that I stand up as a token of respect for that soul. Whosoever possesses that soul, whether a Jew, a Christian, a Muslim, or Hindu, or Buddhist, that person deserves the honor, grace, and respect. So therefore, it should not come to the mind of Western people that somehow Muslims or Islams have nothing to do with human rights. Yes, they have agreed in 1948, but the Quran has brought these issues to the limelight in the 7th century desert. At the same time, my brothers and sisters, for a Muslim, this is not something new when you talk about religious tolerance, or when you talk about plurality, and when you talk about coexistence, because Quran makes it very much clear, La ikraha fi din, there is no compulsion in the matter of religion. فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ. Let the person who wants to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala believe. And let the person who wants to deny Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deny Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no way you can impose religion, Islam, ibadah of Islam, aqidah of Islam by means of force. It's a personal connection between an individual and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So based upon one's ethnicity or race or religious choices, any kind of discrimination based upon those factors is totally un-Islamic. That's where, within the Islamic context, the Jews, the Christians, the Hindus, everybody enjoyed their status, their right, and equal opportunities of work, education, sustenance, and dignity. And the Muslim history is a witness. Otherwise, many of the Jews and the Christians today in Egypt, in Jordan, in Syria would have been non-existent. Many of the churches which are in Jerusalem or in Damascus or Beirut or Amman, and some of them the most ancient of all the churches, would have not existed if the Muslims would have not given them the equal opportunity and protected their temples and churches. At the same time, my brothers and sisters, when it comes to the issues of individual dignity, Surah Al-Hujarat is a witness where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden backbiting and disrespect based upon gender or ethnicity or the social or financial status. لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى أن يكونوا خيرا منهم ولا نساء من نساء عسى أن يكون خيرا منهم ولا تلمزوا أنفسكم ولا تنابزوا بالألقاب and اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن إن بعد ظن إثم ولا تجسسوا ولا يغتب بعضكم بعضا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has clearly told slander is forbidden, whether between female, men or women, between Muslims or non-Muslims, tajassus or spying upon each other, or going after each other in backbiting. All of these things are forbidden. And these are the sources of disrespect and ignominy in the media, in the governments, as well as in our individual and collective discussion. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has portrayed this human dignity in the best of the fashion and with the best of the beautiful words, and making human being a khalifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a vicegerent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon this earth. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. He created all of you, all the Muslims, non-Muslims, every human being who has got the soul, as the vicegerent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon this earth. So therefore, those secular humanists, those Western apologists who really believe that Islam has got nothing to do with the human rights, need to check their records, need to check how many people have been killed since 1948 by the same Western powers, by the same dictatorial regimes who were part and parcel of that Declaration of Universal Human Rights, and how many people have been killed by Muslims nowadays or even in the previous centuries. And the answer will come from the human history, from the statistics and the data of different wars, whether World War I, II, Iraq War, Afghanistan War, or you just name it. That being said, my brothers and sisters, it's time for us, the Muslims, to reflect upon our own countries, our own communities, and also reflect upon what is the modern world doing when it comes to the human rights. And when we talk about the Day of Human Rights, we remind ourselves, we remind our brothers and sisters in the Muslim world, and also we remind our brothers and sisters here in our beloved country, America, that somehow we are all, somehow, I would say, all the human beings, they have failed when it comes to the issue of human rights. We are living in this village, which is called world. This is such a small planet. Even though God has created enough resources for all of us to survive and live off these resources, but some of us, the human beings, we are so greedy. We want to take more than everybody else. And somehow we are able to usurp the right of other people, the territories of other people, the economic resources of other people. Even though we eat 2 times or 3 times meal, and we do not put 2 or 3 shirts at one time, but somehow we are accustomed to stashing the cash in our houses, in our cabinets, in our accounts, where there are some people who are not having enough to eat. There are some of us in this world who have got enough for the centuries to come, even though after 100 years, nobody existing at this time upon earth will continue to live. So therefore, it's a challenge for all of us, whether Eastern or Western, Muslim or non-Muslim. And wallahi, I want to remind especially my brothers and sisters, the American friends, that we were number one when it comes to the issue of human rights. This country used to be one of the heavens of human rights and freedoms. But one incident changed our destiny. Since 2001, since the tragic incident of 9/11, where 3,000 innocent Americans were killed, but somehow we have killed. Since 9/11, millions in Iraq, millions in Afghanistan, thousands in Pakistan, and before that in Chechnya, before that in Palestine, before that in Philippines. And somehow we are able to maintain somehow the records within our land here in the States. But somehow our policies outside our land are totally unacceptable, totally inhumane. Look at what we have done in Guantanamo. And yesterday the report came from Germany that they have figured out that there were CIA prisons in Bucharest where torture is rampant, where people are arrested from the Muslim world in the name of militancy and taken over there in the Eastern European country of Bulgaria and so many others, tortured to the extent that somehow no human beings can accept it. This is not what our Constitution stands for. This is not what our country stands for. And this is not what the human rights allow us. Don't go that far. Waterboarding have been done there here in New York. In the Hudson River, many of the people who were alleged to be the militants or terrorists were waterboarded there in Hudson River. Is that part of humanity and human rights? What we have done in Abu Ghraib, what we have done in Bagram in Afghanistan, perhaps that is the largest human prison on a US base, and that is there in Afghanistan. Such torturous, such inhumane, and such disrespectful to humanity that our policymakers do not talk about them. And rest aside those prisons, let's talk about these drones, let's talk about these unnamed, those kind of equipment and weapons, which are showering bombs day in and day out. And for every so-called militant, there are at least 10 to 50 innocent civilians being killed by those drones. And let's talk about what's happening in the presidency of President Obama. This person whom I praised and admired when he got elected, every common sense person thought that he is going to bring our troops back from Afghanistan and Iraq. Has not only increased the war in Afghanistan and tortured more people, but somehow has been able to satisfy his conscience to target civilian people along with so-called imminent dangers and killing them with bombs without bringing them to the courts or to the justice system of United States of America. When I am talking with you right now, there's a bill sitting in the Senate of United States of America. In the name of national security, our Senate is allowing our military to detain any United States citizen for indefinite time without even having the charges against him or her, as long as he or she is thought to be a terrorist or a militant or a danger to the national security. Is this what we are talking about, human rights? I really feel the last 11 years, the beginning of this 21st century, has seen or witnessed so many setbacks when it comes to the human rights that our championship, our slogans of human rights have lost all the air, as the balloon is really no more any visible. We used to put the blames against Soviet Union, against China, against all the governments, and taught them about their records on human rights. But what face we have got right now to face the world, while our prisons are the source of torture, waterboarding, and indefinite, you can call it imprisonment, without even bringing them to the court or to the justice system. While I am reminding my Muslim brothers and sisters and telling our governments, shame on you. You do not listen to the Qur'an. You do not listen to the Sunnah of Rasulullah Sallam. You do not respect human beings as equal to you. You do not give them the freedoms. You do not give them the proper equal opportunities when it comes to financial resources. I also want to remind the policymakers of United States of America, my beloved country, that somehow you are also going on the wrong route. You have taken this country back to those stone ages where people were treated because of what? Their race, their ethnicity, or because of their religiosity. The Muslim community has become a fifth column. The agencies or the policymakers are looking at them as somehow the collective responsible for whatever is taking place with our forces outside this country, forgetting that the actions and sometimes the inhumane actions of our forces are the one which are responsible to bring the hatred and to cause what is happening there with us outside this country. The only way out is for the Muslims as well as non-Muslims to go back to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us and given every human being the dignified opportunity of work, job, respect, religion, life, property, prosperity, and whatever is needed to actualize the human potentials. Ya ayyuhan nas, inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha wa ja'alnakum shu'uban wa qaba'ila lita'arafu. Inna akramakum 'inda Allahi atqakum. Inna Allaha 'alimun khabir. O people, we have created you from one father and one mother, and then made you into Muslims and non-Muslims, into Arabs and non-Arabs, into American and non-Americans, so that you can recognize each other. Don't use this nationality, this racism, this ethnicity as the source of inferiority or superiority. You are all equal in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He will look into not your faces, your color, your ethnicity, but into your moral actions and into your righteousness. And that will be the source of superiority, not the American exceptionalism or the Muslim exceptionalism or the Jewish exceptionalism. There's no chosen people, there are no superior, there are no favored nation when it comes to the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna akramakum 'inda Allahi atqakum. And the Prophet ﷺ said, An-nasu sawasiya ka-asnan al-masht, that all the human beings, they are equal like the teeth of a comb. We are brothers and sisters. We are part of the same humanity, and we need to respect each other, love each other, and appreciate each other's fellowship. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. My brothers and sisters, when we talk about these national and international issues, we also have to reflect upon us as individuals. When we interact with our families, when we interact with our brothers and sisters, when we deal with each other on the local level, the same issues of human right, human dignity, human sense of caring and sharing should apply to us as individuals as it applies to our nations and our international scenarios. So therefore, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the way you deal with your wife or your husband. Fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the way you deal in your business. Fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when it comes to backbiting, slandering, or putting other people's down. Remember one thing, the human dignity. And the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for every human being is wallahi 1,000,000 times more than many of the furu'at upon which we focus a lot. All of these branches of deen may not be asked about, but these basics of human dignity, mutual respect, and really dignifying the other human being will never be tolerated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So reflect upon it and ask yourself these hard questions before these questions will be asked of you when you go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يَوْمَ تُرْجَعُونَ إِلَى اللَّهِ ثُمَّ تُوَفَّى كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَا كَسَبَتْ وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ. The last words which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, even after the ayah of Al-Yawma Akmaltu Lakum Deenakum Wa Atmamtu Alaykum Ni'mati Wa Raditu Lakum Al-Islam Deena, is the ayah of Surah Al-Baqarah, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَاتَّقُوا يَوْمًا تُرْجَعُونَ فِيهِ إِلَى اللَّهِ. Fear that day. Be conscious and cognizant of that day when you will all return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ثُمَّ تُوَفَّى كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَا كَسَبَتْ. And then He will compensate every soul of whatever it has earned. My brothers and sisters, this life is not eternal. Nobody is going to live here for eternity. And believe me, even if we are able to run away from the justice system, from the courts, from the police, we will not be able to run away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have to reflect upon our personal responsibilities and work towards establishing humanity and the dignity of humanity in this life. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ رَحْمَةً